Hi everybody and welcome back to another video. I am so excited to share with you guys some of my favorite breakfast recipes that I cook on a daily and a weekly basis to nourish my body. I am a holistic nutritionist and an herbalist, and I see food as an opportunity at least 3 times a day to nourish our mind, body, and spirit. Food is so much more than just something that we eat. Food is connection to the earth, to ourselves, to our bodies, and to each other, and to the land, and to the plants, and to the animals. And so I'm filming this video to show you guys how you too can see food as medicine and start your day off on a very nourishing note. And so with that, I'm going to be sharing with you guys some of my favorite meal prep recipes, high protein recipes to start your day off on a really good note. And I'm also going to be including in a lot of nutraceuticals, meaning nourishing food as medicine ingredients to really give your body that boost, that extra love, that extra hug from the nourishment of the plants, from the nourishment of all of the food that we can give to our bodies. And so with that, let's get into the video, and I am going to show you some of my favorite recipes that I cook on a daily and weekly basis to nourish my mind, body, and spirit. The first recipe that I wanted to share with you guys is this super simple 2-ingredient bagel recipe that you can make any day of the week and freeze for later use. To make these bagels, you need 2 cups of almond flour. You can also use any other flour that you have on hand, but I love using almond flour because it makes it grain-free and it also boosts the healthy fat and protein content of the bagels. You then mix it with 1 cup of yogurt. I love using Greek yogurt or any yogurt that is higher in protein because it makes these bagels a super healthy option in the morning because we all need a lot of protein to start off our days right. It is recommended that we start each breakfast with around 30 grams of protein because this will give our bodies all of the amino acids that it needs to make the correct amounts of neurotransmitters and hormones to get us throughout the day. You then mix these together and start to roll them into little logs, and then roll these logs into circle bagel-like shapes. And this recipe makes around 6 small bagels, but you can also just make 3 larger bagels. I then put these bagels on a baking sheet with a piece of parchment paper to make sure that they don't stick, and then I optionally go in with an egg wash. I love using the egg wash because it makes the bagels super nice and golden on the top after you bake them, and I think it also helps them stick together, but you definitely do not have to go in with the egg wash. You can also stop here, but I also love to go in with some added toppings. I had these California poppy seeds that I was gifted from a friend who foraged them, and then I also put on some dried onion flakes, and I also put on some sea salt to make them sort of like everything bagel seasoning, but I didn't have everything bagel seasoning. Another great bagel topping that I love to do is cinnamon and coconut sugar. I feel like it makes it a really nice churro texture. I then bake these in the oven for about 30 minutes at 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and when I remove them, I allowed them to cool slightly. This is really huge because if you try to cut them when they're really hot, they will crumble, but when you allow them to set for about 30 minutes or longer if you put them in the fridge overnight, they cut very smoothly and very evenly. I usually top them with butter and honey or some cream cheese and honey, and then I also will top them with peanut butter and honey, and I always have them alongside some type of fruit and some type of healthy fat like avocado. I always choose a fruit that's in season, and right now we have some in-season blackberries that are growing in my backyard, and then I love to include avocado because avocado is really high in B vitamins, which is really essential for proper nerve function and for nervous system function in the body, as well as giving our skin that extra glow that it so needs and deserves. This next recipe is one of my favorite recipes to meal prep and keep in the fridge for an easy, healthy breakfast all week long. It is a really simple recipe for these gut-healing roasted potatoes alongside a really nourishing egg frittata. So I start by chopping up about 4 medium-sized russet potatoes. I also will sometimes use sweet potatoes here, and then I chop up 1 yellow onion. Potatoes are really high in potassium, which is a crucial nutrient that we need in our bodies for proper hormone development and function. Since they are a root vegetable and they grow in the rich soil, they are also really high in other minerals like iron, magnesium, phosphorus, and copper. These are specifically very beneficial for women to ingest on the regular because we lose a lot of minerals as we bleed every single month, and it is crucial that we are replenishing these minerals through our diet. I then add the potatoes and onions to a baking pan. I love using this cast iron one because it is not full of any endocrine disrupting chemicals, and then I drizzle them with some really healthy extra virgin olive oil, some sea salt, some pepper, some Italian seasoning, and some garlic powder. I then add them to the oven to bake for about 35 to 40 minutes at 400 degrees Fahrenheit or until they are nice and crispy and golden. While those are baking, I then go in to start my egg frittata. Making egg frittatas are very simple and kind of intuitive, but essentially I chop up any in-season vegetables. Today I chopped up some bell peppers, some onion, and some zucchini from the garden. I threw those all into a bowl. You can definitely use less vegetables and more eggs, but I love my frittatas full of vegetables to get in those crucial micronutrients, antioxidants, and fiber. I then add in a whole dozen eggs. I choose pasture-raised eggs from my chickens, but choose whatever you have on hand. Pasture-raised is definitely better because they will be higher in vitamin D, which is a crucial precursor for hormone development in the body. I then just mix them all up, add some sea salt and some pepper, and pour those into another cast iron skillet. You can also use a pie tin or also turn this into little egg muffins in a muffin tin. I add that to the oven to bake for about 25 to 30 minutes or until the top is set and golden. I then put those all into a bowl and serve them with some avocado and some sauerkraut. I love adding in some type of fermented food at every single meal, and sauerkraut is a great way to do this. Fermented foods are high in probiotics, which essentially help to replenish our gut microbiome, and our gut microbiome is crucial for the health of our entire bodies. I will keep this in the fridge all week long, and something really wonderful that happens when you do this is when you allow the potatoes to cool after you cook them, you essentially allow the starches to reform into something known as a resistant starch, and these resistant starches feed the healthy gut microbes in our gut microbiome, and they also help keep our blood sugar stable throughout the day. This next breakfast is a super simple one that I lean on most mornings, and that is an herbal yogurt bowl. And the reason I say herbal is because I love using yogurt as a vehicle to get in my herbs. It is a super simple way to hide them in and mix them into a sweet little concoction. So what I do is I take about a cup of yogurt, usually I choose Greek yogurt or Icelandic yogurt, and I mix in some herbs, usually a tincture of herbs. This morning I use shatavari, which is really great for supporting your reproductive health and finding optimal hormonal balance. I also added in some blue butterfly pea powder, which is really great for nervous system health and is chock full of antioxidants like anthocyanins. And then I added in some vanilla extract and some honey to give it some sweetness. I just mix that all up in a bowl, and then I add in some of my favorite toppings. On this morning, I added in some blackberries because blackberries are in season, like I said before, and we have an abundance of them growing in our backyard. And then I added in some various nuts and seeds. I love using breakfast as an opportunity to just throw in a bunch of different sources of fibers and omega-3 fatty acids. The more diverse you can make your diet in terms of fibers, the more diverse your gut microbiome is going to be, and that means the more resilient your entire body is going to be. And so I added in some walnuts and some sunflower seeds because walnuts are super high in omega-3 fatty acids, which helps fight off inflammation in the body. And then the sunflower seeds help my body find its optimal hormonal balance when I am in my luteal phase. This is due to them both being high in vitamin E, and this vitamin E is really essential for progesterone development, which is really crucial for our luteal phase. I added in some coconut flakes, which are high in medium chain triglycerides, which help support healthy metabolism. And then I also added in some extra honey on top, as well as some local bee pollen. And bee pollen is nature's multivitamin. It contains all the essential minerals and all the essential amino acids that your body could ever need. And this is probably my favorite breakfast because it's so well-rounded and makes my body just feel so good. The yogurt gives my body the probiotics that my gut needs, and then all of the other polyphenols from the plants that are in it help my body just feel immaculate. This next breakfast is a super simple high protein recipe that you can make when you are short on time, and that is an open face egg and bacon sandwich. Okay, so I start by cooking some of this Applegate turkey bacon on a cast iron skillet, which I greased with some avocado oil. You always want to cook with avocado oil because it has a really high heat potential. You can also cook with beef tallow or with ghee because they also have super high heat potentials, but cooking with coconut oil and olive oil can actually make your food rancid because they have super low heat potentials. I then cook up 2 pasteurized eggs as well, and then I toast some of my favorite bread. So if I'm not eating sourdough bread, I usually am eating Ezekiel bread, and that is because Ezekiel bread is full of sprouted grains, and this essentially just releases any anti-nutrients and makes the grains more digestible and more absorbable to our bodies. I also love Ezekiel bread because it has 5 grams of protein per slice, so eating 2 slices gives you 10 grams of protein, which is amazing. So after toasting those up and cooking the bacon and the eggs, I add half of an avocado onto 1 slice of the bread, and then I add some sauerkraut on top of that. Like I mentioned before, I always try and get in some type of fermented food at every meal, and this day I put in some sauerkraut onto the toast. You can also add in kimchi or pickled onions or anything that is fermented, or just take a swig of kombucha. Those are all great options as well. I added some greens. I usually put arugula or microgreens, but I didn't have any today, and I had some lettuce from the garden, so I added some lettuce in. It's not as tasty, but it definitely gives me some extra nutrients. On the other half of the toast, I added some of this Nancy's cream cheese. I love this brand because it is a probiotic cream cheese, which also adds in some good probiotics to our gut, and it is also grass-fed, which means that it's higher in omega-3 fatty acids rather than omega-6 fatty acids, which is really great for inflammation levels in our body. I added the turkey bacon on top and the eggs on top of both of those toasts, and I just enjoyed those alongside some berries in the morning. I know I didn't include in any of my morning beverages, but I usually do not drink coffee. It makes me very anxious and really jittery, so I tend to choose matcha, but recently I've been choosing yerba mate and I've really loved it. I also will alternatively just drink some dandelion root tea, and the dandelion root tea has that nutty flavor like coffee, but it will not spike your cortisol and it actually supports your liver, so I definitely recommend that. Okay, so this is one of those super simple ones that you just throw everything into a blender and then you can keep it in the fridge, and it's usually better after you allow it to set in the fridge because it becomes this nice, really mousse-like consistency. So I start by adding in 2 avocados into a blender, and then I add in about 1/2 a cup of cacao powder. Cacao is such an amazing food to include in the morning. It is a natural source of caffeine, and it is not a jittery source of caffeine. It is a heart-opening source of energy, and it is also rich in a lot of minerals like magnesium and iron, which help to remineralize our bodies as women as we bleed each month. I then added in 1/4 cup of maca powder, and maca powder has been one of my favorite adaptogenic hormone balancing herbs for a long time now. It is very estrogenic, which helps to bring balance to the yin in the body and balance the feminine. It is an adaptogenic herb, and this is actually so beautiful because the way it grows is that it has adapted its own plant body to only show a small amount up at the top of the soil, which is because it grows in one of the most extreme climates in the world. It grows up at the highest points of the Andes Mountains, and the way it has adapted its own body, it offers that same medicine to our body. It allows our bodies to adapt to stressors and to find balance even when things are a little bit stressful. I also added in some protein powder to make this a protein-rich breakfast. I used a plant-based protein powder by Four Sigmatic, and it definitely changed the taste a little bit. Typically, I just add in some pure collagen powder, and it usually makes it a nice creamy chocolatey taste, but this one made it a very interesting taste. So I would recommend using grass-fed whey or collagen instead of a plant-based powder, but if you're plant-based, then I would go for this one. It tastes pretty good. So I add those into a blender alongside some coconut milk. I use a can of full-fat coconut milk because the fat within coconut milk is known as medium-chain triglycerides, and those help to support our metabolism, and our metabolism is so much more than just burning energy. It is delivering nutrients, and it is fueling our energy throughout the day. So starting our day with some medium-chain triglycerides is really helpful. I then sweeten it up with some maple syrup. Sometimes I use honey, sometimes I throw in 3 or 4 dates, but this morning I chose maple syrup because it is super high in minerals as well. I then add in about a teaspoon of vanilla or more. I love lots of vanilla. And then on the note of mineralization, I added in some Celtic sea salt. I love Celtic sea salt because it is super high in minerals, sweetness. And when you don't blend it in fully, it gives you those nice little specks of salt that are so wonderful in chocolate dishes. And truly, it's that simple. You just blend it up till it's nice and consistent, and then you can pour it out and eat it as is. When you eat it fresh out of the blender, it's super pudding-like and it's thick but not too thick. But I really like to put it in the fridge overnight to allow it to set, and it makes this really delicious thick mousse-like consistency that is almost like ice cream and almost like brownies, but somewhere in between, very cheesecake-like. Anyways, that morning I essentially just topped it with a bunch of goodies like fresh fruit and nuts and seeds, like I did with my yogurt bowl. Like I said before, the more variety of nuts and seeds you can get into your life, the better. And so if you had pumpkin seeds, if you had cashews, almonds, if you had any other fruit like strawberries, blueberries, bananas, mangoes, any of those sorts of things, you could throw those on top too. And the more diverse you can make your diet, the better. Each plant has its own unique subset of fibers as well as antioxidants to offer to our bodies, and the more diverse you can make your body, the more healthy it is going to be. Okay, I hope this video inspired you all to go and make yourselves some nourishing breakfast to start your days off beautifully and nourished and just full of energy so that you can pour yourselves into the rest of your day at your fullest point. You deserve to be nourished. You deserve to tell your body that you love it, because they do so much for us. So the least we can do in return is give them all of the nutrients and nourishing foods that they so deserve. Anyways, I am so grateful that you guys tuned in for this video and allowed me the space to share my knowledge with you. I love talking about food and sharing food as medicine. And so with that, I hope that you guys return for another video soon. I am going to continue putting out content about our bodies and about health and about how we can use food and herbs as medicine in all areas. And so I look forward to seeing you all in a video soon. Until then, nourish yourselves, nourish your mind, body, and spirit in all aspects, and take care. Take some time out in nature to just tap in and remember that you are nature.